Hi there, students. To presuppose. I think this is to assume that something is true, to accept that it is true before you have proved it. You are presupposing that we will have enough money to do that, and we haven't checked how much it is yet. So presuppose. Or if a situation pre-proposes something, then it must be true for that situation to work. So I was talking with my wife about the building work that we would do on the house that we wanted to buy, but all of that was presupposing that they accepted the offer. So presupposing is something that requires necessarily something before it. So I quite like this one. The term tax relief presupposes that taxes are an affliction, and like that you get relief from the affliction. But to presuppose as well, to believe or to suppose that something in advance. So I'm sure somebody's then going to ask me, what's the difference between to suppose and presuppose? And I don't think there's a huge amount of difference. But I think suppose is to think that something might be true. Whereas to presuppose is to take for granted that something is true before you've actually proved that it's true. So to presuppose means to suppose beforehand, to suppose before something, and to go into the logic of what would happen, presupposing that that was true. Okay, so to presuppose, if one thing presupposes another, then the second thing can't be true unless the first thing is also true. The end of a century presupposes the beginning of a new century. Everything you're saying proposes that he is a rational person and will understand what you're saying and agree to it. So to presuppose, to require a condition to be satisfied, to a precondition for the next statement. So yes, have you stopped beating your wife? This presupposes that you have a wife and that you've been beating her already. Okay, so to require or to imply an effect presupposes a cause. But you can also presuppose to assume beforehand. This is to take for granted. Okay, one thing presupposes another. It implies that something else is true. To presume that something is true. So the end of one thing presupposes the beginning of the next. Okay, the rules that you are proposing presuppose the restriction of access to the building. So assume directly. Your argument presupposes that it doesn't matter who's in charge. Okay, to take something for granted, to take it as read. So I presuppose that you have read all the conditions in the contract. I take it as read that you have read all the conditions. Yeah, I presuppose this. Okay, so to presuppose, to suppose beforehand. This job means that I will move to America, but that presupposes that I actually get the job. So to pre-propose, to think, to presuppose, to think that something is true without having any any proof, or to consider that something is necessarily true if something else is true. They say that teaching presupposes a formal education, but I don't think so. I think if you're able to do something, then you're able to teach people how to do it. Okay, so to presuppose, to suppose beforehand, to assume some truth without proof, usually because you want to reach a conclusion based on that. So to presuppose, let's see, this comes from French presupposer, from Latin prae, before, and supponere, to suppose. So to suppose before. So presuppose.